Well, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon to those of you who are in a time zone where it is the afternoon. Before we start this episode, I do want to just thank our sponsor. We did have a sponsor this week, unlike last week. This episode is sponsored by Dieter's Movie Quote Training. You heard that right. If you've ever wanted to navigate through life's toughest situations armed with nothing but random movie quotes, Brad has you covered. So if you need to hype yourself up, if you need to, I can't even finish it. If you need to hype yourself up before a workout, he'll train you to yell, "There is no spoon" from The Matrix. If you're at an awkward family dinner, he's got you covered with, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Boss asks you to stay late for work. Boom, I'm too old for this" from Lethal Weapon. With Dieter's movie quote training, there's virtually no scenario in life that can't be awkwardly but perfectly expressed through a movie line. Spots are limited, though, because he only has one noggin, and it's jam-packed with VHS tapes worth of dialogue. So go sign up today and start living your one cinematic line at a time. Your life, one cinematic line at a time. I feel like there's really no life scenario that you don't have a movie quote for that you can just pull out of your noggin and like it's
And
relatable
they're
to the.
usually like the most obscure B movie you've ever seen.
And I'm pretty pumped about that one. I think people should sign up. But we have a fantastic episode for you guys today. And this is a topic. I don't want to say that we've shied away from doing it, but
No, Dylan's
we
asked
haven't.
me a million times to do it, and I've said no because I just don't want the pain.
So that's accurate. But
Uh,
let me just first preface this episode by stating something that to me is obvious, and that is our audience is mostly female. We know that. A lot of our clients are female. Many of the people that are in our group are female. And so when you have when you're when you have two males who are talking about something that affects females, I think it's probably met with some skepticism, right? Of like, how do how would you guys know what it's like to be female and deal with these hormones, right? And I think that's a fair skepticism. So I just want to say that, as we go throughout this episode, the intention here is not in any way to, invalidate anyone's experience or say that any of your beliefs, if those beliefs are challenged in this episode, it's not to, say that you're wrong. It's really just we can present the data and science that we know about this so that you can apply that knowledge going forward so that you have a better idea of what does this mean for me and what can I do about it, right? And Brad, you wrote a really good post the other day that touched on this, and I thought it was very well stated. I thought it was very respectful, right? And I just thought we can kind of talk about this in that same way and be educational without making people feel like we're invalidating their experience and just do it in a tactful, respectful way. And so that's what we're doing. It's one of the most, I don't want to say controversial, but I guess it kind of is sometimes, and certainly a misunderstood topic in the health and fitness industry. So, and that is hormones and weight loss, right? So, the big thing is that one of the big questions is always, do hormones prevent you from losing weight? So we'll get into that, and I think it's something that there's nuance to it. So I think maybe the best place to start, Brad, is let's dive into the, when people say my hormones are messed up, I can't lose weight, right? What they usually mean is they feel different, their energy is not there, the cravings are stronger, maybe recovery is slower, right? So is I guess in that sense, is there any place you should we start there with what do we mean when we talk about like what hormones are we even speaking of? Maybe that's the best place to start, right? And like how would you explain the difference between these hormones and influencing weight loss, etc.? That's kind of two questions, but I think it
yeah.
might be the best place to start.
I mean, I think before we dive into this discussion, I think there's a lot of like high level things we need to lay out on the table because I think it's really
Okay.
important. So, one,
Okay.
we're going to talk about a lot of different hormones in this discussion, not just like obviously the topic du jour is menopause, perimenopause, whatever.
Yeah.
We will talk about that a little bit. But so we're going to talk about a lot about them. So I think there's a few things we just need to like put out on the table of how we frame this discussion and why it's important. The first is I'm not a board certified endocrinologist, so just take that as a grain of salt. I spent a lot of time working in like conditions related to hormones, right? Diabetes specifically. So I've spent a lot of time in this topic, but again, I'm not a board certified endocrinologist. So just we'll put that there. The second thing is it's important to understand that there is a difference between the objective reality of what you're facing and the subjective experience of what you're facing, right? And as humans, effectively all of our life is this subjective experience. There's a lot of times
Right.
where what you feel like is happening is in juxtaposition to what the objective reality is, right? This is why eyewitness testimony is the lowest level of evidence in the courtroom, right?
It's just not very reliable.
I mean, it just that's just the truth, right? So I think you have to divorce yourself, or at least just accept that my subjective experience may not be a true reflection of reality. And when you can do that, it's really powerful. The third is approach this conversation with as little bias as you can. Because I find a lot of times when I have these discussions, people like smuggle in things of what they think I'm saying, right? So, for example, if I say, you know, we'll talk about this later, menopause does not affect your basal metabolic rate to a meaningful degree, and the changes in sex hormones don't meaningfully impact your basal metabolism, right? And then people will say, well, so you're saying that this doesn't have any effect on my biology. No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is this specific thing, right? So I think that is the first piece. The third piece, or third, fourth, wherever we're at on this list, is this topic can get a little bit complicated. And so it's always important to like bring it back to its most fundamental ideas and first principles thinking, right? Because that's where you can really get to the truth of the matter. So, and then the last thing is we need to understand when we talk about like hormones and body weight, there is like just scale weight, right? And then there is body composition. And those are two different things. And hormones can affect both of those things very differently. For example, if you have very poor cortisol management in an acute setting, you can gain a huge amount of weight very quickly through water weight, right? Like I had a friend of mine, cause I don't know, but maybe a decade ago, he had some like just very weird, bizarre, like acute hormonal crisis where his cortisol levels just were so through the roof for like a few days. And when that happens, you have massive water retention. So he was in the hospital. They were giving him IV fluids because he was just like losing water into his interstitial space. And he gained like 40 pounds of scale weight in like 48 hours just from all the fluid, right? That is acute hormone weight change. That's not acute hormone body composition change outside the fact that you just have a lot of body water, right? He didn't gain 40 pounds of fat in 48 hours. It was like literally all water, right? Then they put him on some drugs and some Lasix, and like he lost most of that within like a day, right? Obviously peed a lot, or his catheter was very busy that day. But like when we talk about weight loss and hormones, it's important to divorce those two ideas: body weight and body composition. And we're gonna have to talk about all of those things because that's kind of how the discussion goes.
Probably along with the water weight that you're talking about, a lot of people do experience that for various reasons. And you don't just, I mean, obviously you feel it, but you can also see that in the mirror. Like you can see if you gain a bunch of water weight, you're going to look puffier.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to feel it because your clothes are a little bit tighter. So in your mind, you're like, well, this is, here's what's happening to me. I'm gaining weight, right? So there is that feel and that visual part of it too, where it's like, I this is my proof that hormones are making me gain weight, right? So, and that is the subjective part of it. So, but there are also, real clinical conditions where hormones do play a big role, right? Thyroid disease, there are rare genetic conditions, but that's not most people, obviously. For the majority, hormones don't rewrite the laws of physics. It's calories in versus calories out. That still applies. Hormones might change how hungry you feel, how much you want to move, how well you sleep, but they don't obviously erase that equation. So, how do you usually explain? Well, I guess, I mean, actually, I think you did a pretty good job of elaborating on the difference in how hormones affect weight loss versus,
Yeah. So
you
there's
know,
like
but
there are I mean there's situations in which hormones directly affect the energy balance equation, like directly, right?
yeah.
If somebody removed your thyroid tomorrow and you had no
Mhm.
thyroid hormone, your basal metabolic rate would drop
Right.
a meaningful
Yep.
degree, right? And you
Right.
probably, if you changed nothing else in your life, you would gain weight over a period of probably weeks and
Hmm.
months, right? Because you
Hmm.
have substantially changed your energy equation
Yep.
directly,
Yeah.
right? Now, if you correct that through thyroid
Hmm.
medication,
Hmm.
it's back to normal, right? Now, obviously, there's like trying to figure out dosage and titration and all that stuff, but like that's a situation where a hormone directly impacts energy expenditure, like in a very
Right.
direct, meaningful way. But there's a lot of things that affect them in an indirect way, right? So, for example, I'll give you like very extreme examples. Leptin deficiency, right?
Hmm.
So, leptin is a hormone that's secreted by your adipose tissue
Hmm.
that helps regulate hunger and physical activity, energy expenditure to try to maintain your body weight within a certain window, right? Sorry, your body adiposity within a certain window. Body weight's a little bit different story. If you have a genetic condition where either your body doesn't make the leptin protein or your body doesn't make the receptor in which the protein binds, it is nearly impossible to have regular body adiposity, right? Even amongst kids who are like 4 or 5 years old, they have a very high level of body adiposity. And it's because there's really no central nervous system governor on hunger. So they're always hungry and they're always eating,
Yeah, I was going to say that
right?
would directly affect hunger, wouldn't it? Yeah.
And their drive to move is very low
Hmm.
because they're basically their body has been genetically tricked into thinking they have low levels of body adiposity no matter how high their body adiposity actually is, right? In humans, you have a linear increase in the production of leptin as your body adiposity goes up. So when you don't have any, you can't control your body adiposity. Now, when you give those people recombinant leptin, a drug that replaces it, it fixes the issue and they go back to regular phenotypes, right? What's very interesting is if you give people with regular obesity, like common obesity is what we call it, the same medication, there's very little effect. Like it works a little bit, but like not to a meaningful degree, right? So what that shows you is there's a big difference between a misfunctioning body on a binary scale of like it's there, it's not, right? You have a thyroid removed, you don't. You have leptin, you don't. Or it working on like a dimmer switch, right? There's a very, very big difference between those two. Most people are in the dimmer switch situation, right? Most of us have, like, if you and I were to have our blood work done, right, for all of our hormones, thyroid, T3, T4, reverse T3, testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, um, parathyroid, like all these different hormones, we have we're all over the map. Like you and I, like your testosterone may be a little bit higher, my estrogen may be a little bit higher, my thyroid may be a little bit higher. Like it's going to be somewhere in these range, and these are all within like physiologically normal levels. And small changes in those generally don't impact your ability to control your body weight. All right, this has been tested. We know this. This is just how it works, right? Um, that's just kind of how the human body regulates itself. And so when we talk about people, in the discussion of, hey, my thyroid's a little bit low, my estrogen levels are a little bit low, my testosterone's a little bit low, like I can't lose weight or I can't improve my body composition. Those things just clinically are not true from a direct perspective. Now, indirectly, those things can impact you, right? If I have like clinically normal but low levels of testosterone, I probably don't feel great, right? I probably don't have high energy. I probably have lower libido. I'm probably not sleeping very well. I'm probably not recovering very well. So it makes it harder for me to train hard, recover, move more, have energy, etc. And so the energy expenditure part of my equation is probably going to be lower than it would be if it was higher. But that's related to the things that you do in your day, and how you feel dictates what you do in your day.
So let's speak to a lot of the women that we work with are in that age range where menopause starts to become something you need to manage, right? And I know that obviously, like you said, you're not an endocrinologist, so neither of us are experts at in this area. But what do we see hormonally happen? Excuse me, happen during menopause? Like I said, from a hormone standpoint, I know we see estrogen go down, progesterone goes down, um, maybe cortisol increases. Like, what do we see happen? The reason a lot of women feel less energy, they get hot flashes, they get, you know, their hunger levels change. What's going on there hormonally? Do you know? Like just at a high level?
Yeah, I mean, it's, when we talk about like what the profile is, and again, this is not my area of expertise, so bear with me if I'm not 100% technically correct. You get drops in estrogen through like perimenopause, menopause. You get an increase in FSH, so full follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and they continue to produce low levels of testosterone, right? So basically, you lose the hormonal profile of being a reproductive female, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is where I think the conversation is important and does matter. When we say like the hormonal changes that occur in menopause don't make it impossible to lose weight, what we're talking about is your energy balance equation, right? And I want to talk
Mhm.
about the body composition, lifestyle stuff in a second, because that's part of the discussion, but a little bit separate. So, what we see in the data objectively is basal metabolic rate doesn't change to a meaningful degree, right? And so, the energy expenditure part of the equation, what actually we see in the data is generally speaking, physical activity levels decrease. And it's to a meaningful degree. I'd have to go look at the studies, but it's a couple hundred calories a day of like non exercise activity drops. And it's usually related to like they're not sleeping as well, they don't have as high energy. It's a fairly large like physical change that women are going through. And so they just don't feel great, right? And so that leads to these drops in physical activity. It generally leads to drops in training volume and recovery. And so energy expenditure changes. And a lot of times people will say, hey, I'm still doing the same things, I'm still eating the same way, and my body's changing. And it's like, yes, your body's changing, but the weight loss energy equation specifically, that's how it's changed, right? Now, when we talk about like the body composition piece, there's absolutely a change in how your body will partition nutrients and how well it
Yeah.
can build muscle, maintain bone tissue, and like lay down adipose tissue, right? There are changes that favor a more high body composition, like a high body fat composition than a low body fat composition, right? That's definitely true. However, those changes are not to the degree where lifestyle interventions do not override them,
Mhm.
right? This has
Right.
been studied in the literature. In fact, they have even done studies where they have tracked, like basically done lifestyle interventions with diet, exercise, track body weight changes and body composition, women before, during, and after these changes. And it works out how we would think it works out, right? And so I think that's really good, powerful evidence of like, hey, the subjective experience you're feeling is 100% valid, right? You're going to feel like everything's changing. You're not going to feel as great. Your appetite's going to change. Your desire for physical activity is going to change. Your body is definitely shifting towards it. It is becoming more difficult to build muscle tissue. It is becoming more difficult to maintain bone mass. It's becoming a little bit easier and more permissive for your extra calories to be stored as body fat than it was when you were 20, right? But that's also true of all humans as we age, right? It's just that change is accelerated during that phase for women. And so both of those things can be objectively true, right? The subjective experience is different. The objective truth of the data is what it is.
Do we see, this is sort of random but related, but do we see a decrease in bone density during this time? Or does that have to do more with maybe there is less training, less resistance training, so that contributes? Or maybe
So
it's both.
it's definitely both, right? The changes in hormones plus the decrease in physical activity plus just the fact of aging itself, all of those things combine to like higher risk of osteoporosis.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah, because that's just a big one that seems to be it's a it's a pretty serious risk too. So it's something you want to keep your mind on or be aware of. So and good, by the way, that I really like how you laid all that out. I think that's super helpful, kind of the way you put all that. But for other, like, here are some other big ones that we hear. We hear about insulin resistance. I mean, insulin is a hormone, and so that's part of what we're talking about here. We hear that, like, it essentially stops, or if you're insulin resistant, you can't lose fat. And we've talked about this before. Like, you obviously, diabetes is your realm of expertise, and so you could speak about that all day. But those types of narratives are powerful because they feel true, but obviously, as we've already gone over, the evidence isn't always the same thing. And so, out of like the ones like that we hear about, so the hormone profiles during menopause, insulin resistance, etc. What have you run into the most? Like, and like, why do you think that particular narrative is so sticky? Like, would you say that do you find insulin is the bigger one that you hear from people more?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I feel like the conversation around that is changing a little bit, but we still hear like, hey, it's much more difficult to lose weight if you have insulin resistance than if you don't. And what's really weird to me is the only place that that's ever actually come from is what I will call the like blogosphere. We have
Or social?
never, yeah, I mean, it originally
Well,
came from like
that's what you're
pre-social
talking
media,
about,
right? The
though.
blogs.
Sure. Yeah.
There's never been any evidence in the research literature that suggests that that's true, right? There's been some evidence of like, hey, nutrient partitioning and like where excess calories go may be different, but
Yeah, it's not the same thing
there's
we're talking about.
yeah, like there's never been any evidence, like not even small trials that I'm aware of, that have suggested that people with insulin resistance have a meaningfully different ability to lose weight. In fact, I've got a
Especially
study.
when medicated, obviously, right? Like, I mean, when you're medicated, then
Well, even
it's
without medication,
right.
right? No,
When lifestyle interventions are controlled.
yeah. I mean, so for example, I gotta see if I can pull this up here. I'm trying to find
Well, but while you're looking that up, true or
study.
false? People still lose fat at the same rate when calories are matched. When I say people, insulin resistant people versus
Yeah.
non-insulin resistant people.
Yeah. So here's a study that's actually relatively recently. And the original purpose of the study was a little bit different than what we're talking about here, but the data is actually like exactly what you would ask. So um if you take people and one of the ways we can assess insulin resistance in a direct way, sorry, not a direct way, an indirect way, is what is their like circulating level of insulin, right? The higher it is, the higher your insulin resistance is, right? So there would be a few things that would be true if insulin resistance impacted weight loss, right? You would see, you could do a couple different types of studies, but effectively, individuals who had a higher level of insulin resistance would lose less weight than people who with low levels of insulin resistance when you do the same like calorie deficit, control calorie intake, control calorie expenditure study, right? you could also do that on like a linear scale of like low, medium, high, 1 unit to 100 units of insulin in your blood, like whatever. Like it would all track through, right? And so this was a study that actually looked at the purpose of it was, hey, if we match low carb versus low fat diets to their genotype or their physiological profile of low levels of insulin resistance versus high, like do they lose weight differently to like try to optimize diet? But this study basically looked at this question, right? So this is the people who are in the lowest 33rd percentile of insulin. So they had low levels of insulin resistance, and these were the highest, right? And what we see is the weight loss is basically the same across all of them, right? They lost 10 pounds or so in the intervention, right? And what's also important is the distribution of weight loss was almost identical, right? So like if you've ever read a box and whisker plot, like this is the people lost weight in a range of anywhere from they gained weight, which means they didn't really follow the protocol, to they lost a lot of weight, right? 40 pounds, 50 pounds, 60 pounds. And what's interesting is the distributions are almost identical and the average weight loss is almost identical. So what
So
it
we
tells
find
you
this.
is
Go ahead.
your level of insulin resistance does not meaningfully change your ability to lose weight compared to somebody else who has a very low level of insulin resistance or none.
And we've come to this same data, same results in like every study that we've done about this, right? Like it just consistently shows
Effectively,
up.
yeah. Now there may be some like
Yeah.
weird case studies or stuff that's like out there, but it doesn't really negate like what does the large majority of the literature suggest?
So, I mean, here's essentially everything that we've covered so far, what you're saying in a nutshell. For insulin resistance, people still lose fat at the same rate when the calories are matched. When it comes to menopause, outcomes are similar across stages when lifestyle is controlled, right, with lifestyle interventions
For body weight, yes.
or body weight. General, or let's just go general hormone imbalances, unless it's severe, it doesn't override energy balance. And so, why these things feel true is because hormones change how we feel and behave, right? So, our energy dips, cravings go up, our recovery isn't as good, and our lifestyle just changes, right? And that's what impacts results. And those are very real to us, right? The way we behave dictates our circumstances and it becomes our reality. And so we say, well, here's what happened to me, so it must be true, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying, and we are saying in this episode, that if you go out and meaningfully make lifestyle interventions, or if you were in a controlled setting, a perfectly controlled setting, we could generate the outcome we want with by implementing the interventions that we want to include, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of the overall takeaway, I think, in a nutshell, right? Is you, and I think, I don't know this is what I want people to take away from it is understand that you're still ultimately in control. So if you feel helpless, I'm 50 years old, I'm 55 years old, or 45, whatever, and you're like, I don't feel the same as I used to. What's the point? It's hopeless. It's not, right? You just might need to make some changes that you wouldn't have needed to make before, right? Is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
And it's going to feel it that's not going to. It may feel more difficult than it did in the past.
Right.
Right?
And
And
I
just
think that's what a lot of,
realize that is a normal experience,
yeah,
right? I mean, obviously there's not a people have argued there's a mandropause, but like that's not really a thing, right? Like we see declines in testosterone and sometimes we see
testosterone, sure.
slight increases in estrogen as we age. But like my subjective experience of trying to change my body at 37 is different than it was at 20,
Yeah.
right? Like there's obviously the objective truth, right? I'm older, so my ability to build muscle tissue is lower, my ability to recover is lower. Like there's some objective truths there. But the reality is at 37 with at least one full-time job, plus a family, plus everything else going on, like I get less sleep, I have less free time, I'm more stressed. It's harder to prioritize those things. Training feels harder. recovery feels slower. Like I just it feels more difficult, right? And
For sure.
that is true. And when
Hmm.
you layer on like big hormonal things, it's going to amplify that effect, right? Um, but I think like if we go back to let's go back to the like the body composition thing because I think that is something we hear all the time. People are like, oh, my hormones change, so it's like my body's going to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, yes, that is true, right? And here's the most extreme example. There have been studies where they have taken people. These are almost all in men, so just because the reason these studies are done in men is because of ethical reasons through IRB board approval. But they've taken men and they've given them very large doses of anabolic steroids and put them on a calorie deficit and said, okay, what happens when we like juice this as far in the realm of building muscle tissue with anabolic steroids and put you in a calorie deficit? Depending on the severity of the deficit and the length of the deficit, what happens is these people still lose weight. Like the physics of energy balance still holds true. They just end up either A, losing less muscle mass, or they do see a little bit of an increase in muscle mass and a greater loss of body weight, right? So what happens is the changes in hormones that happen from like pharmacological intervention do affect your body composition, but they don't affect the energy balance equation directly.
So so piggybacking off that, um, so if you see the evidence pretty clearly and you take into account everything that we're talking about, to me, you gain back a lot of power that you probably didn't think you had. You realize you're not doomed by biology. It keeps you in control of your, more control of your sleep, training, food choices, stuff like that. And honestly, it could save you money by not wasting money on detoxes and supplements or anything that, aims to like reset your hormones. But here's a question for you. From your coaching experience, or just from, the clients that we see and the clients that we work with, what kind of mindset shift do you see happening when clients like fully understand this and take this into account and then act accordingly?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is it reduces the feeling of helplessness, right?
Like,
I
what do
think
you
a
think
lot
that
of
like?
times, I think a lot of times people go, this is my situation. Doing anything is hopeless. Therefore, I'm not going to do anything. And then it just makes the situation worse, right? It's sort of like we're all going to age and die, right? So once I hit my physical peak at, I'm just making up a number, 35, well, why should I even go to the gym, right? It's like, okay, I'm going, I'm insulin resistant. I have my testosterone's low. I'm going through menopause. My cortisol levels are higher than normal. This is my situation. So what's the point of doing anything? Right? I think when you can remove another reason for people to feel like that, it can be very helpful to spur them to take action. Right? I think when you can give autonomy and control back and tell people they are more in control of their narrative than they previously thought, I think it's really helpful for trying to help people build habits. I don't think it's a panacea. I don't
Sure.
think it's a magic bullet. I think it's a part of the equation of coaching of like, hey, I know that this feels really difficult and this feels different than when you've tried things in the past, and it's going to feel, the subjective experience is probably going to feel like X, Y, and Z, but I want to give you some autonomy and some control over your life of like, hey, here are the things that you can do and here's what the data says. And there may be days where you feel like this doesn't work and there may be days where you feel like what's the point, but like if you keep going, the results will come. And I think if you can have those conversations with people, that is a big tool of like just building that like belief that you can make things happen.
So if you had some practical advice for people, like I would say, obviously we've already mentioned that all of this stuff matters. It shapes the playing field, but doesn't decide the outcome, right? So here's in my advice or my opinion, what you could do practically is at this stage in your life, if this is what you're experiencing, track your lifestyle behaviors alongside your weight. Like there's a lot of behaviors you can track. Look at steps, look at your sleep patterns, look at your workouts. Um, the other piece that I think you have to adjust your expectations as you age, don't you think? Right? Recovery takes longer, but progress is still possible. So you want to make sure that you are one of the things that people, I think, the mistake people make, and we've all done it, is having these expectations that don't actually align with where we're at and are not realistic for us. So I think adjusting your expectations as you age is a big thing, and just understanding that if you're 45, 50, you're like, at some point, you're not a spring chicken anymore, right? And then, of course, a couple of things become more important. Protein as you age becomes important. Strength training definitely becomes more important as you age. Those are kind of your non-negotiables, or at least I think the one non-negotiable for sure is strength training. But shameless plug here, this is where coaching really does come in and can shine. And for anyone that is like not sure where to go, you're dealing with all these challenges, you can do this on your own and have a lot of success. But I do want to say, maybe consider getting a coach, because there's a lot that you can learn and do together through this. And everything that Brad and I are talking about, like imagine having that type of guidance like every day for months or for however long you need the guidance, right? Like we can help you adapt as your biology shifts so that you don't get stuck, right? But anyway, Brad, if you had to say like one or two adjustments for practical advice that you'd give people that you've seen make the biggest difference for people in this situation, and they feel like they're holding them back, what would those be? Like one or two just practical tips that you can take away right now. Like if I'm someone I'm a female in my 40s through I'm somewhere between 40 and 60. You're my coach. What would you say?
Be skeptical of messages that take away your agency.
Yeah, we just talked about a lot of that, didn't we?
I mean, that
That's a
would
good
be
and that's
one
a
of
good
my
point.
biggest pieces of advice. And that applies to this. It also applies to way more things than that,
Yeah, for sure.
right? If someone tells you this is your situation, this is the only outcome, and you have no control, it's very rare that's the case.
For sure.
And it's generally they're trying to sell you something
Yeah, like the solution.
at the end of the day, right? I mean,
Yeah.
here's my sell to coaching to you. I'm a big believer of you're in complete control of this journey, right? I mean, there's things outside of your control, right? But like almost all of this is in your control. And what coaching is going to do is it's going to help you take that and turn that into your life, right? I'm not going to sell you supplements. I'm not going to sell you a bunch of like weird things. I'm going to try to show you how to use the tools you have. Right? Think about it like this. Let's say you want to build a house. I'm going to show you how to use a hammer. I'm going to show you how to read blueprints. I'm going to show you how to pour concrete. I'm going to show you how to wire the house. I'm going to show you how to lay the tile. I'm going to show you how to install a countertop and a cabinet. Like, that's what I'm going to show you, right? That's what the coaching is. It's like, okay, here's all the things you're going to experience in this journey. Here's the pitfalls of why you end up probably eating more than you think you do. Here's why you can't maintain high levels of physical activity. Here's what you can expect when you're losing weight and how you're going to feel. Here's some mental tools and models of the world that help you fix that. Like that's what giving you the agency and autonomy is, right? It's not, oh, hey, your metabolism's broken. You have to buy a supplement every month for the rest of your life or it's never going to be fixed. Right? Those are two very different approaches. So I'd say the first thing is be skeptical of things that take away your agency. The second piece is either be aware that your brain can suck and can be your worst enemy, or find someone who can remind you of that frequently, or do both. Right? So I had lunch with my financial advisor the other day, and I've been working with him for, I don't know, quite a while. And like almost none of our conversations are actually about like money, finance stuff. It's always about like behavior and life. And one of the things that came up was like, hey, why do you continue to work with me after like a decade? You've got good habits, like you kind of know what you're doing. And it was having someone remind you of why your habits are so important, and it being the voice of reason when things are hectic, it is immensely valuable. And so if you can develop the skills to do that yourself, you can change the trajectory of the next many decades of your life. Right? If
A random question.
like obviously the scale fluctuates in a given week. How you look in the mirror fluctuates in a given week, right? So if you had the like right now, if your perspective is every time you see your body go in the wrong direction on the scale or in the mirror, you kind of have a freak out and go, "Oh, it's because of this issue and I need to go find a new solution." Right? Or if your approach is, "Oh yeah, this is just what happens is the human body." Like I ate a little more salt last night. Oh, I didn't eat enough carbohydrates, so I look flat today. Oh, I trained really hard 2 days ago, and so like my abs are like still recovering so that they don't look like they're as cut as they normally are because they look a little like, you know, etc. Like if you can have the mental models to be like, okay, I'm still on the right path, even if there's the variation in the day to day.
You brought up something that I think was important, and that is you have and someone in the comments, Michelle said, and that's why I have a macro zinc coach. But you value the things that you value are why you still have your financial advisor. But why do you value what you value? Right. And the other part is as a as someone who is going to like obviously the people who are successful at losing weight, they did so because they value the end result of that. But if you don't value it enough, then you're not going to follow through with it, right? So at the end of the day, I don't want to like oversimplify it, but a lot of it does come down to what are the things that you value. And if you value the guidance and everything that you're talking about, that's why you get a coach for the weight loss side of things. That's why you get a coach for the money management piece. Right? So a lot of it comes down to what do we value and how do we shape and sort of change what we value.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to be different, right? I think anybody who has ever come into our community has improving their physical body and their health somewhere on their
Mm-hmm.
value list. Otherwise, they wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be here, right? So
For sure.
that is, at some point, I value being a better version of myself, right? Like somewhere along the line, if you've ended up in our community, like that is somewhere on your value stack, becoming a better version of myself. And part of that is looking better, feeling better, taking control of the body that you live in, right? And it reminds me of, I think it's a Confucius quote. It's he who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. Right? I think there's like other variations of it, like he who conquers himself conquers the world, whatever. And it comes down to like, okay, if I can just be aware of what are the things my brain is going to tell me that aren't true, but it tells me because it's a good story and my brain likes to do that. If I can develop systems or things in my life that remind me, oh, yeah, that's not true. This is what I really need to do. It's immensely helpful. Like, I
Do
think
you
this
think you
is
could
this is going to get a little bit philosophical and maybe very personal, but like I think this is one of the best parts about being married. Like you have such a tight relationship and you live every day with somebody who sees you and helps you realize what you need to do to conquer yourself. Right? Like that to me is like the most intimate part about being married, is like you have somebody who is around you all the time, knows about you, and like helps hold up that mirror and says, okay, this is right. And well, I mean, what coaching does is it does that in a specific part of your life in a very
Yeah, for sure.
non-judgmental, effective way, right? It's like, okay, you said you valued this, your actions don't align, let's do this instead. Or, hey, you said you value this. This is the internal monologue you're having today. Let's have a different internal monologue. Oh, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't need to be crazy.
Sorry, my daughter is opening the door in the middle of in the middle of our show. She may. Excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. I did want to share this comment here. I thought this was cool. From Sherry, I went through menopause with no intervention from drugs or supplements. I have lost 110 pounds. Hormones haven't slowed me down.
That's
So I think that's
that's
pretty cool.
crazy. That's a whole person.
Yeah, I was going to
Like
say
you
that.
lost a whole person. Like just take a minute and think about how wild of an accomplishment that is.
Yeah,
Like I don't think
that takes some serious dedication and perseverance, and
it's
it's
also
just.
just I don't know how to say this without like I might get a little emotional. That is one of the biggest things people can do. Right? I mean, effectively what that is like you've taken control of who you are as a person and
Mhm.
massively changed the direction of your life.
I was going to say you're a completely different person at that point, like physically
Yes.
and mentally. You're
And
not even close to the same person you were back then.
yeah, I mean like that's in the some of the top feats of what it means to be human,
For sure.
right?
Yeah. So
I mean,
Sherry, if you're still
yeah.
listening, congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like whenever I see things like that from clients, it's still to this day is like just such a wild concept.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around.
Is there anything else you'd want to add to the? I think we've covered a lot of what we wanted to cover. Was there anything else you wanted to cover specifically or add to the end of this episode
Yes.
here?
For those of you who don't know, my email address is dylan@macrozinc.net. So send all of your hate mail related to this episode to that email address.
I'll turn my auto forwarding feature on where it just gets
Uh,
forwarded to you automatically. Oh,
that's
Sherry has.
that's probably true.
She was listening. She's still listening. She said, macros has been the key to my weight loss. The education you give us is so valuable.
I will do
Thank
a
you for the
shameless
shout out, Sherry.
plug. I will do a shameless plug while we're on the air. If you want
Might
to
as well.
learn
I
a lot
didn't.
of the information, we have written books and they will be coming out in October. It's going to be in a course format where it's like think about it like a college level course, but I've tried to do it to where it's digestible. We have the science where we talk about all this kind of stuff. We have the art where we talk about like how do we take these concepts and apply them through behavior change and like coaching, like what is applied coaching. And it also comes with a little workbook where you can like work through these things yourself. So that course will go live October 18th for those of you
How's
interested.
overall from start to finish, about how long all of that stuff took you?
Like just total writing hours or like in calendar time?
Yeah, we'll go calendar time.
Um 2 years?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I figured it was at least a few.
it was a lot.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for it.
You get no
That's all
discounts.
I.
You have to pay full price.
I mean, I think I have back end access. I could just
I don't think you do
pirate
actually.
it. Maybe not. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna tell
Maybe
our
I'll.
webmaster to not create an account for you. You've been banished.
Does anyone have any? I know we got some viewers left, so we've kind of covered what we wanted to cover. And we have a few minutes left. If anyone wants to pop their question into the chat, we'd be happy to answer. Or if you just want to comment about, doesn't even need to be a question. You could just drop a comment about anything, really. But if we don't have any other questions, we can probably wrap this up. But I thought, I mean, hopefully this was a good episode for you guys. Hopefully you found it valuable. I always try to make sure that I feel there's something you can take away from each episode. So I hope that's been the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like I mentioned in my post. A large part of growth and changing who you are as a person, and like obviously in like the health, wellness, weight loss, body transformation space is a lot of times you have to let go of the beliefs that you've had that have gotten in your way.
Mhm.
And this is one we find a lot of people have. It's I can't do X because of Y.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did get another comment from Michelle. That's for you.
Oh, am I the only one trying to zoom in on Brad's books? This has been a comment that a lot of people have made. Um, I will just do one of these times. We'll do like a walk through my bookshelf. I still have a ton of boxes in the basement that I haven't unpacked 6 years later. But like a lot of these are medical reference books that were from grad school. A lot of these are textbooks or books from grad school, like stats books, genetics
Isn't
books.
isn't the uh, isn't the 50 Shades series in there too?
No, that's on yours. And then a lot of these are like kind of fun reading books. These are my leftover lab notebooks from when I worked in the lab.
Is the bottom section where the split brain book is?
That one's either here or it's somewhere in the
Hmm.
basement.
Okay.
Um,
What
oh,
about?
actually, I think I maybe gave that to somebody. I also have this
Oh, really?
really, maybe this is a good habit, maybe it's a bad habit. I just give my books to people.
What about the
I've,
one about cancer as a metabolic disease? There was something titled something like that, right?
this one?
How did? Yeah. How did you like that one?
Um, it was interesting. I think it's. I don't think it's in its entirety. I don't think it's correct. I think there's a lot of really
Interesting.
interesting information in there, and I think it. What I think was really, here was my main takeaway from it. One, it's very clear that cancer is a very complicated
Hmm.
disease. It's not a single disease. It is a
Hmm.
process of biology,
Hmm.
and a lot of the ways that we have studied cancer to date are fundamentally flawed with how we take those findings and extrapolate them to humans. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
for example, we study cancer, at least we have historically, in a very specific strain of mice that have genetics that don't really replicate to humans, right? And so
Yeah.
if a
Right.
lot of cancer is genetic mutations that occur from random, every cancer may be slightly different, right? And
Yeah.
so then how
Right.
you treat that is going to be different. I
It's
mean, that
different.
is,
Right.
yeah, it's sort of like people are like, oh, we're going to cure aging. It's like, well, no. I mean, unless you upload your brain into a computer and you're no longer a biological organism, like you're not going to cure it.
How do I do that?
I don't want that at all.
Um, this is not obviously related, but and we can wrap this up after this. But do you think there will ever be a point in human history where all cancer is curable?
No.
Interesting. Okay.
Have you ever played the game Whack a Mole?
Okay, I see the analogy you're getting at. Sure.
Yeah.
So you squash one, another type comes up.
I mean, it's like, think about it this way. Assuming evolution is somewhat correct, which we have evidence that it's at least directionally correct, right? A lot of the diversity of species on this planet is the result of natural selection, evolution via natural selection, right? Random mutations increase your likelihood of surviving, right? So genetic mutation is part of biology.
Sure. So you think it'll
Unless
always
we
evolve and
unless
continue
we
to
can
happen?
prevent unless we're all
Gotcha.
genetically identical copies, like unless we all become bananas, right? Which the Cavendish banana is just like genetic clones of every other banana. Unless we're all the exact same genetically and we reduce all variability in our gene pool, we will always have cancer.
So essentially, what you're saying is 100 years
And
ago,
there's no
1,000 years ago,
environmental
10,000.
exposure.
Yeah. So you're saying that the cancer that humans have historically had is always different types throughout human history, and different types come up, and it's not the same type.
I mean, yes, like we've probably had versions of lung cancer for thousands of years, right? But like if you were to genotype one from 5000 BC and today, they're probably going to be different. Like
Yeah.
they're going to be different person to person. They're also going to be different over time.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Man, do you remember
Um,
when asbestos was a thing?
yes, actually, when I was in high school, ninth grade, I think they found asbestos in the gym, and we weren't able to use our gym for like a month, and they had to put like these giant tubes from the gym outside as they were ventilating the place. It was this whole ordeal. It was crazy.
Dude, I gotta find. I gotta see if I can find this picture. Um, dude, so there was a cigarette company that made their filters out of asbestos.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, here you go. This is so crazy. I gotta find this.
Jesus.
Um, this is so wild. Hold on, screen. I gotta find this Chrome tab.
I
I'm
mean,
just
did
making
everyone
sure there's
smoking
no
these
like.
cigarettes get cancer? Because that's wild. Wow. Oh my God, look at that.
In 1952, claims that smoking causes cancer caused Kent cigarettes to come out with an asbestos filter to protect its smokers.
Jeepers.
But like that's
That's
humans,
crazy.
right? Like there's so many things.
Oh, Brad left. He just kicked himself out. He tried to stop sharing the screen and kicked himself out. Let's just. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to freeze so that when he comes back, he thinks that his entire.
I hit leave instead of stop sharing. So
Oh, I can't. I was trying to freeze and pretend that the whole thing was frozen, but it didn't work. I kept having to blink. That's wild, though.
yeah,
I had a good laugh that you just kicked yourself out of this.
I
All right.
I hit leave instead of
I
end
figured
screen
that's what
share.
happened. I figured that's what happened. Should we wrap this up? Should we get out of here?
Yes, because I have to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate the viewership. We'll be back next week with another awesome episode. So, with that said, goodbye.